Marriage is like drywall. You never notice the cracks until something starts leaking through. And brother, was my marriage about to flood the whole damn house? I'm Tom Baker, 38 years old, senior project manager for Midwest Construction. I build things that last, fix things that break, and apparently married someone who specialized in neither. My wife Erin had been pulling late nights at her new HR job for months, always with the same excuses: emergency meetings, difficult employees, crisis management. The woman who used to complain about working past 5 was suddenly corporate America's midnight warrior. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Stuck in traffic, going to be hours late, her text read that Tuesday evening. I was sitting in our living room in suburban Minneapolis, nursing a beer and watching the twins lose another game they should have won. No problem, drive safe, I replied, because that's what good husbands do. We trust, we support, we enable lies without even knowing it. But something nagged at me. Traffic at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday in Minneapolis? I'd been driving these roads for 15 years, and unless there was a 20-car pileup, traffic didn't just stop for hours. That's when I remembered our car's GPS tracking app. We'd installed it last year after Erin's car got broken into for security purposes. I pulled up the app on my phone, expecting to see our Honda Civic stuck on I-494 or 35W. Instead, I saw our car parked at 1247 Oakwood Drive. Not moving, not in traffic. Just sitting there in someone's driveway for the past hour and 20 minutes. I stared at the screen like it might change, like maybe the GPS was having a stroke. But no, there was our car, represented by a cheerful little blue dot, mockingly stationary at an address I didn't recognize. My hands started shaking, not from anger yet. That would come later. This was pure adrenaline, the kind you get when you're about to discover something that changes everything. I grabbed my keys and jacket. If I were any more clueless, I'd have to join a support group, but even I could figure out what stuck in traffic really meant. The drive to Oakwood Drive took 12 minutes. 12 minutes to mentally prepare for whatever fresh hell awaited me. The neighborhood was nicer than ours. Bigger houses, manicured lawns, the kind of place where people drove BMWs and worried about property values. I found 1247 easily enough, a sprawling colonial with a 3-car garage and landscaping that probably cost more than my truck. And there, bold as brass in the circular driveway, sat our Honda Civic. I parked across the street, engine running, trying to process what I was seeing. Through the large front window, I could make out figures moving around inside. The living room was well lit, and I had a clear view of the couch. That's where I saw them. My wife, Erin, still in her work clothes, was curled up next to a man I didn't recognize. He was older, probably mid-40s, wearing an expensive-looking shirt and the kind of confident smile that screamed middle management. They were laughing about something, and as I watched, he leaned over and kissed her. Not a friendly peck, not a business meeting kiss. The kind of kiss that meant my marriage was deader than disco. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes, watching them through that window like some kind of suburban private investigator. Part of me hoped I was wrong, that maybe this was all innocent somehow. But when she started unbuttoning his shirt, even my optimistic side had to throw in the towel. I pulled out my phone and started recording. If I was going down, I was taking evidence with me. The video was shaky, my hands weren't exactly steady, but it clearly showed Erin and her mystery man in what could generously be called a compromising position. I got about 3 minutes of footage before my conscience kicked in and told me I'd seen enough. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing through the implications. How long had this been going on? Who was this guy? Did everyone know except me? Back home, I poured myself 3 fingers of whiskey and sat down to think. Erin's phone was constantly buzzing with messages from her work wives, Gina, Marcy, and the rest of her office crew. They had a group chat called Wine and Wine, where they shared office gossip and complained about their husbands. How perfect. I opened Erin's laptop. She'd never bothered changing her password from our anniversary date, and found the group chat. Without hesitation, I uploaded the video with a simple caption. Now, you can all see how much my wife loves her work. And her boss. Send. Within seconds, her phone started exploding with notifications. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The sound of a reputation dying in real time. I finished my whiskey and waited for the storm to come home. Erin stumbled through the front door at 11:47 p.m., her phone clutched in her hand like a live grenade. Her face was flushed, her hair disheveled, and she had the look of someone who'd just watched their life implode via text message. "Tom," she started, her voice shaky. "We need to talk." I looked up from my book. I'd been pretending to read for the past hour, though I couldn't tell you what was on the pages. "Sure, honey. How was traffic?" The question hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. It was terrible," she stammered, not meeting my eyes. "Accident on 494. Cars everywhere." "That's weird," I said, keeping my voice conversational. "I didn't see anything about it on the traffic reports." Her phone buzzed again. She glanced at it and winced. "Maybe it wasn't on the news yet," she said weakly. "Maybe." I closed my book and looked at her directly. "Anything interesting happen at work today?" Another buzz. Another wince. Her phone was lighting up like a Christmas tree, and each notification was driving another nail into her coffin. "Tom, She started to speak, then stopped as her phone rang. The caller ID showed Gina's name. "Aren't you going to answer that?" I asked. "Might be important." Erin declined the call, but immediately it rang again. This time it was Marcy. "Popular night," I observed. "Tom, please, I can explain." "Explain what?" I kept my voice level, almost bored. "You haven't done anything that needs explaining, have you?" The phone rang again. This time she answered it. "Hello?" Her voice was barely a whisper. I couldn't hear Gina's exact words, but I could hear the tone. Sharp, excited, scandalized. Erin's face went through several shades of pale before settling on a sickly green. I can't talk right now," Erin said into the phone. "I'll call you tomorrow." She hung up and looked at me with eyes that were starting to fill with tears. "Tom, I made a mistake." "What kind of mistake?" I asked, though we both knew I already had the answer in high-definition video. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed with a text, then another, then 5 more in rapid succession. The Wine and Wine group chat was apparently having the most exciting Tuesday night in its history. "The kind of mistake that involves Neil Haywood's couch?" I suggested helpfully. The color drained completely from her face. "How do you know about Neil?" "Well, funny thing about being stuck in traffic. It usually involves, moving. Your car's been parked in his driveway since 6:30. Erin sank into the armchair across from me, her phone still buzzing like an angry wasp. "Tom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It just happened. I never meant for me to find out? Yeah, I figured that part. No, I never meant for it to happen at all. Neil, he's my boss, and he was going through problems with his wife, and I was just trying to be supportive. Is that what we're calling it now? Support?" My phone chimed. A text from my sister Mel. "Holy shit, Tom. Just saw Gina's Facebook post. Are you okay?" So the news was spreading beyond the Wine and Wine chat. Perfect. "Tom, please," Erin was saying. "It was a moment of weakness. It didn't mean anything." "How long?" I asked. "What? How long has this moment of weakness been going on?" She hesitated, and in that hesitation, I had my answer. 3 months, she whispered. 3 months of emergency meetings. 3 months of difficult employees. 3 months of me being the understanding husband while she was playing house with her boss. I see. I stood up and walked to the kitchen, mainly because I needed to move or I was going to say something I might regret. Well, more than I already had. Erin followed me, her phone still creating its electronic symphony of social destruction. Tom, we can work through this. It's over with Neil. I'll quit my job if I have to. We can go to counseling. It's over with Neil? I turned to face her. Since when? Since right now. Since I realized what I was throwing away. Or since your coworkers found out and your reputation went up in flames. Her phone rang again. This time the caller ID showed Mom. Oh, God, Erin breathed. Gina must have told her mother, and you know how they talk. Answer it, I said. I'd hate for you to miss any important calls. She declined the call, but we both knew it was just delaying the inevitable. In a town like ours, news traveled faster than bad weather, and adultery was the kind of storm that everyone wanted to watch. Tom, please. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. I looked at my wife, really looked at her. 3 months ago, I would have done anything to make her happy. I would have moved mountains, changed jobs, sold everything we owned. But that was before I knew that late at work meant horizontal with the boss. You know what the funny thing is? I said. I actually believed you, every single time. Emergency meeting, difficult client, crisis situation. I believed every word because I trusted you. You can trust me again. I'll earn it back. With what? More traffic excuses? Her phone buzzed with another text. She glanced at it and her face crumpled. What now? I asked. Marcy says, she says Neil's wife found out. Someone sent her the video too. I hadn't sent it to Neil's wife, but apparently someone in the Wine and Wine group had taken that initiative, the gift that keeps on giving. Well, I said, opening a beer from the fridge, sounds like Neil's having an even worse night than you are. Tom, his wife threw him out. He's been calling me nonstop, but I'm not answering. I told you, it's over. Because you got caught. Because I realized I was about to lose the most important thing in my life. I took a long drink of beer and considered that. Maybe she meant it. Maybe she really was sorry. Maybe we could work through this like adults and rebuild our marriage stronger than before. Then her phone buzzed again, and I saw her instinctively reach for it, even in the middle of her heartfelt apology. Some habits die hard. You should probably get some sleep, I said. Tomorrow's going to be interesting at work. Tom, please don't shut me out. We need to talk about this. We are talking about it. You're sorry. It's over. You want to work things out. I heard you. And I'm going to need some time to think. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand. I'll sleep in the guest room. Good idea. As she headed upstairs, her phone rang one more time. Through the thin walls, I could hear her answering. Hi, Mom. No. I can't really talk right now. Yes, I know what Gina posted. No, it's not what it looks like. But it was exactly what it looked like, and everyone knew it. I sat in the kitchen, finishing my beer and listening to my wife try to explain the unexplainable to her mother. Tomorrow, she'd have to face her co-workers, her friends, and everyone else who'd seen the video. She'd have to walk into her office, knowing that everyone had watched her betray her marriage in high definition. The thought should have made me feel sorry for her. Instead, I found myself wondering what other evidence might be lying around. If she'd been carrying on with Neil for 3 months, there had to be more than just one night of couch gymnastics. I opened her laptop again and started digging. By Thursday morning, Erin's world had officially collapsed. She'd called in sick to work. Apparently, facing your colleagues after they've all seen you straddling your boss requires more courage than she could muster. Her phone had been ringing non-stop with calls from friends, family, and what sounded like half the Minneapolis metro area. I, on the other hand, was having the best week I'd had in months. My buddy Pete stopped by during his lunch break. Pete's an ex-cop who now runs a security consulting business, which makes him the perfect person to talk to when your life turns into a crime drama. "So," he said, settling into the kitchen chair that Erin used to occupy. "Heard you've been making waves in the suburban gossip circuit. News travels fast. My wife got the video from her book club. Apparently it's made the rounds through every social group in a 20-mile radius." He cracked open the beer I'd handed him. "How you holding up?" "Better than expected, actually." Pete studied my face. "You don't look like a guy whose marriage just imploded." "Maybe because my marriage imploded 3 months ago. I'm just finding out about it now." "Fair point." He took a drink. "So what's the plan?" "Plan? Come on, Tom. I've known you for 15 years. You don't do anything without a plan. Remember when Johnson tried to screw you out of that promotion? You had a 3-month strategy that ended with him getting transferred to the Duluth office." I smiled. Johnson deserved Duluth. And what does Erin deserve? That was the million-dollar question. What did my cheating wife deserve? Public humiliation? She already had that. Divorce? Probably inevitable. But something about the whole situation still bothered me, and it wasn't just the betrayal. "Pete, can I ask you something? Hypothetically." "Shoot." If someone was having an affair with their boss, and they were using company resources to do it, company car, company credit card, company time, would that be grounds for termination? Pete's eyebrows went up. Hypothetically? Yeah. Most companies have pretty strict policies about that kind of thing. Why? I pulled out a folder I'd been compiling over the past 2 days. Because I've been doing some homework. The folder contained printouts of emails, credit card statements, and receipts, all stuff Erin had left lying around or saved on our shared computer. She'd never been particularly careful about covering her tracks, probably because she never thought I'd go looking. Hotel receipts, I said, spreading them out on the table. All charged to her company credit card, all on days when she claimed to be working late. Pete whistled. That's not good. Gets better. Look at the dates on these emails. I showed him a chain of messages between Erin and Neil, discussing their business meetings in language that would make a sailor blush. All sent during work hours, using company email. Jesus, Tom. She wasn't even trying to hide it. And here's my personal favorite. I pulled out a restaurant receipt. Dinner for 2 at Mancini's, charged to the company card. Look at the date. Pete looked. February 14th. Valentine's Day. She told me she had to work late because of a personnel crisis. Turns out the crisis was deciding between the lobster and the filet mignon. This is enough to get both of them fired, Pete said. Maybe even sued by the company for misuse of funds. Hypothetically. Right. Hypothetically. He grinned. So what are you thinking? Before I could answer, my phone rang. The caller ID showed my sister Mel's name. Hey, Mel. Tom, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all morning. Have you seen Facebook? No, why? Erin posted something. You need to see this. I put the phone on speaker and opened Facebook on my laptop. Erin's most recent post was a masterpiece of damage control. Going through a difficult time right now. Some people have been spreading rumors and sharing private moments that were taken out of context. I ask for privacy and understanding as my family works through this personal matter. What you see on social media isn't always the whole story. The post had already gotten 43 comments, and they weren't exactly supportive. Out of context? Pete read aloud. How do you take adultery out of context? She's trying to spin it, Mel said through the phone, making it sound like she's the victim here. I scrolled through the comments. Most were from people I didn't know, friends of friends who'd seen the video and felt compelled to share their opinions. But a few were from people in our social circle. Look at this one, I said, from Janet Morrison. I read aloud. Erin, you're such a strong woman. Don't let people judge you for following your heart. Following her heart? Pete snorted. Is that what we're calling it? And this one from Mike Chen. Hang in there, Erin. Everyone makes mistakes. The people who matter will stand by you. Unbelievable, Mel said. She cheats on you for 3 months, and somehow she's the one who needs support? That's when it hit me. Erin wasn't just trying to save her reputation, she was trying to rewrite the narrative. Make herself the misunderstood woman who made one mistake, not the serial cheater who'd been lying to her husband for months. Pete, I said, remember what you said about having a plan? Yeah, I think I'm ready to make one. That afternoon, while Erin was out running errands, probably meeting with Neil to coordinate their stories, I put phase 1 into motion. I called Erin's company and asked to speak with HR. Not Erin's department. She worked in HR, but the main corporate office. Hi, I said when I got connected. I'd like to report a potential misuse of company resources. What kind of misuse? The woman asked. The kind involving company credit cards, company cars, and company time being used for personal activities. I see. And you have documentation of this? I have receipts, emails, and video evidence. Can you hold, please? I held. Within 5 minutes, I was transferred to someone with the title of Director of Internal Compliance, which sounded appropriately ominous. Mr. Baker, she said, I understand you have some concerns about employee conduct. I do. My wife works for your company, and I've discovered she's been using company resources to conduct an extramarital affair with her supervisor. There was a pause. That's a very serious allegation. I have very serious evidence. Would you be willing to come in and discuss this matter in person? When? How about tomorrow morning? I'll be there. After I hung up, Pete looked at me with something approaching admiration. You know this is going to get both of them fired, right? Hypothetically. And you know Erin's going to figure out it was you who reported them? Eventually. And you're okay with that? I thought about it. Was I okay with destroying my wife's career? A week ago, the answer would have been no. But that was before I found out she'd been destroying our marriage while I was home watching baseball and trusting her completely. Pete, I said, she made her choices. Now she gets to live with the consequences. What about Neil? What about him? Guy's probably got a family, kids, mortgage. This could ruin his life. I looked at Pete like he'd grown a second head. He's been screwing my wife for 3 months. His life can go ahead and get ruined. Pete held up his hands. Just making sure you've thought this through. I have. And you know what? I'm just getting started. That evening, Erin came home looking like she'd been through a blender. Her eyes were red, her hair was a mess, and she had the defeated posture of someone who'd spent the day trying to convince people that black was actually white. How was your day? I asked pleasantly. Horrible, she said, collapsing onto the couch. I went to see Neil. How's he doing? His wife changed the locks. He's staying at a motel. That's rough. She looked at me suspiciously. You don't seem very upset about any of this. What do you want me to say, Erin? That I'm sorry your boyfriend is homeless? He's not my boyfriend. It's over between us. Because his wife found out. Because it was wrong, and I realized it. I nodded. Well, that's something, I guess. Tom, I know you're angry, and you have every right to be, but we need to start talking about how we're going to move forward. Move forward? With our marriage, with counseling, with rebuilding trust. I stared at her. Erin, you've been lying to me for 3 months. You used company resources to cheat on me. You spent our anniversary money on hotel rooms with your boss, and now you want to talk about rebuilding trust? People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. Multiple choices, made over and over again for 3 months. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and frowned. What now? I asked. Neil. He wants to meet tomorrow to talk about the situation at work. What situation at work? Apparently, someone filed a complaint with corporate. They're launching an investigation into our relationship. I tried to look surprised. Really? Who would do that? We don't know. But Tom, if they find out about the company credit card and the hotels, you could get fired. We could get fired, and sued, and possibly charged with fraud. Wow, that's terrible. She studied my face. You're not surprised. Should I be? You've been using company money to fund your affair. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences? I thought no one would find out. Well, someone did. Tom. Her voice was very quiet. Did you report us? I looked her straight in the eye. Erin, I didn't even know about the company credit card until yesterday. It was technically true. I'd suspected, but I hadn't known for sure until I found the receipts. But if you had known? If I had known that you were stealing from your company to pay for your affair? Yeah, I probably would have reported it. She stared at me for a long moment. I don't know who you are anymore. Funny, I said. I was thinking the same thing about you. Friday morning arrived with all the subtlety of a freight train. I was up early, showered, and dressed in my best suit, the one I usually reserved for client meetings and funerals. Today felt like a little of both. Erin was still asleep when I left for my appointment with the Director of Internal Compliance. She'd been up most of the night, pacing around the house and making hushed phone calls to Neil. I'd heard fragments through the walls. Investigation, evidence, completely screwed. The corporate offices were downtown, in one of those glass towers that make you feel small just looking at them. I took the elevator to the 23rd floor and was escorted to a conference room that screamed, "Serious business." The Director of Internal Compliance turned out to be a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s named Patricia Wells. She had the look of someone who'd spent her career cleaning up other people's messes and had run out of patience somewhere around mess number 10,000. "Mr. Baker," she said, shaking my hand. "Thank you for coming in. I understand you have some concerning information about employee conduct." "I do." I placed my folder on the conference table. "My wife has been having an affair with her supervisor, and they've been using company resources to facilitate it." Patricia opened the folder and began examining the contents. Her expression didn't change as she looked through the hotel receipts, the email printouts, and the credit card statements, but I could see her jaw tighten slightly. "This is quite comprehensive," she said finally. "How did you obtain these documents?" "The emails and credit card statements were on our home computer. The receipts were in my wife's purse and car. I didn't hack anything or break any laws." "And this video?" "Taken from a public street, through an open window." She nodded. "Mr. Baker, I have to ask, what do you hope to accomplish by bringing this to our attention?" "I want the company to know that 2 of their employees have been violating policy and misusing company funds. What you do with that information is up to you. You understand that this could result in termination for both employees?" "I understand. And possible legal action to recover the misused funds?" "I understand that too." Patricia closed the folder. "We'll need to conduct a full investigation, of course. This will likely take several weeks." "Of course. During the investigation, both employees will be suspended pending the outcome." I tried not to smile. "I see. Mr. Baker, I have to say, this is one of the more clear-cut cases I've seen. Your documentation is thorough, and the evidence is compelling. I'm a project manager. Documentation is what I do." She almost smiled at that. "Well, your attention to detail is about to save the company a significant amount of money and liability." I left the corporate offices feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Phase 1 was complete. Now for Phase 2. I called Pete from my truck. "How'd it go?" he asked. "They're suspended pending investigation. Full termination likely within 2 weeks. Damn, Tom, you don't mess around." "I'm just getting started. You free this afternoon?" "For what?" "A little social media management." Pete met me at a coffee shop near my house, bringing his laptop and a grin that suggested he was enjoying this more than he probably should. "Okay," he said. "What's the plan?" I pulled out my phone and showed him Erin's Facebook post from the day before, the one about rumors and context. "She's trying to control the narrative," I said. "Make herself look like the victim." "Yeah, I saw that. Pretty ballsy, considering. I want to set the record straight." "How?" I opened my own Facebook account, which I rarely used, and started typing. "I want to thank everyone who has reached out with support during this difficult time. Some of you may have seen a video that's been circulating, and I want to address it directly. The video shows my wife of 12 years having an affair with her boss. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a mistake taken out of context. It was the culmination of a 3-month relationship conducted during work hours, in company vehicles, and paid for with company funds. I have documentation showing dozens of hotel visits, romantic dinners, and explicit communications, all occurring while I was told she was working late. I'm sharing this not for sympathy, but because I believe in honesty. My marriage is over, but my integrity isn't." "Jesus," Pete said, reading over my shoulder. "You're really going nuclear." "She fired the first shot with that victim post. I'm just returning fire." I hit post and immediately tagged several mutual friends, including a few who had commented supportively on Erin's post. Within minutes, the comments started rolling in. "Holy shit, Tom. I had no idea it was that extensive. 3 months? And she was using company money? That's not a mistake, that's fraud." "I feel terrible for commenting on Erin's post now. I didn't know the whole story. You're handling this with more class than she deserves." But my favorite comment came from Janet Morrison, the same woman who had told Erin to follow her heart. "Tom, I owe you an apology. I commented on Erin's post without knowing the facts. What she did was inexcusable." "Phase 2 complete," I told Pete. "What's Phase 3? I was about to answer when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Erin's name. "Tommy?" Her voice was shaky. "What did you do?" I told the truth. "You posted our private business on Facebook. I corrected the misinformation you posted on Facebook. People are calling me horrible names. They're saying I should be arrested for fraud." "Well, you did commit fraud. It wasn't fraud. It was a few dinners and hotel rooms. Paid for with money that wasn't yours." There was a long pause. "Tom, please take the post down. Please. My mother saw it. My sister saw it. Everyone from high school is commenting." "Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to rewrite history. I'm begging you. The same way you begged me before you started sleeping with Neil. That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. "Erin, you spent 3 months lying to my face. You used our anniversary money to pay for hotel rooms with another man. You made me look like an idiot in front of our friends and family. And now you want to talk about fair?" "Tom, I know I hurt you, but this is destroying my life." "Your life was destroyed the moment you decided to cheat. I'm just making sure everyone knows who did the destroying." I hung up and looked at Pete, who was staring at me with something approaching awe. "Remind me never to piss you off," he said. My phone immediately rang again. This time it was my sister, Mel. "Tom, I just saw your Facebook post. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Mel." "You don't sound fine. You sound scary." "Scary? Like, I'm going to burn everything down and salt the earth scary." I considered that. Maybe a little. "Good. She deserves it. But Tom, be careful. Don't do anything that could come back to bite you legally." "Everything I've done is completely legal." "I know, just don't let this turn you into someone you're not." After I hung up, Pete and I sat in silence for a few minutes, watching the comments pile up on my Facebook post. "Your sister's got a point," Pete said finally. "This is getting pretty intense." "It's supposed to be intense." "Yeah, but where does it end?" That was a good question. Where did it end? When Erin lost her job, when she lost her friends, when she lost everything she'd built over the past 34 years. It ends when she stops trying to make herself the victim, I said finally. And if she doesn't stop? I looked at Pete and smiled. It probably wasn't a reassuring smile. Then I guess we'll find out how creative I can get. That evening, Erin came home looking like she'd been hit by a truck. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her hair was disheveled, and she moved like every step hurt. "Tom," she said, "we need to talk. I'm listening. I got fired today." "I heard. Neil got fired too, and the company is suing us both for misuse of funds." "That's unfortunate." She stared at me. "That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry you got caught stealing?" "It wasn't stealing." "What would you call it?" She sank onto the couch, her head in her hands. "I called a lawyer today. He says we could be looking at criminal charges." "We?" "Me and Neil." "Ah." I sat down across from her. "So what's the plan?" "The plan? Are you going to blame this on me too? Tell everyone I forced you to commit fraud?" "Tom, I never blamed you for anything." I pulled out my phone and showed her Facebook post. "Really? Because this sounds a lot like blaming to me." She read it again, and her face crumpled. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. "So you decided to lie some more." "I wasn't lying. I was just trying to protect myself." "By making me look like the bad guy." "No. I never said you were the bad guy. You said people were spreading rumors. You said things were taken out of context." "What exactly was taken out of context, Erin? The part where you were naked with your boss, or the part where you were stealing company money to pay for it?" She started crying again. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But Tom, you're destroying my life." "I'm not destroying anything. I'm just making sure people know the truth." "The truth is ruining everything. Then maybe you shouldn't have done things that look so bad in the light." She looked up at me through her tears. "What happened to you? You used to be kind. You used to be forgiving. I used to have a wife who didn't lie to me for 3 months. I'm still your wife. Are you? Because for the past 3 months you've been acting more like Neil's wife. That's over. I told you it's over. Because you got caught. Because you got fired. Because you're about to be sued and possibly arrested. Not because you realized it was wrong." "I did realize it was wrong." "When?" "When I saw what it was doing to you." I laughed. "Erin, you didn't see what it was doing to me. I hid it perfectly. You realized it was wrong when you saw what it was doing to you." She didn't have an answer for that. "So what now?" I asked. "Now we try to save our marriage." "Our marriage?" "Tom, I know I broke your trust, but we can rebuild it. We can go to counseling. We can start over." I looked at this woman I'd been married to for 12 years, this woman who had shared my bed and my dreams and my bank account, and I realized I didn't recognize her anymore. "Erin," I said gently, "our marriage died 3 months ago. You just forgot to tell me." "That's not true." "It is true. You made a choice to betray everything we built together. You made that choice every day for 3 months. And the only reason you want to rebuild now is because your other choice got fired and thrown out by his wife." "That's not why." "It is why. If Neil had left his wife for you, if your affair had worked out the way you wanted, would you be here right now asking for forgiveness?" She was quiet for a long time. Too long. "I thought so," I said. That night, I lay in bed listening to Erin cry in the guest room and felt something I hadn't expected: peace. For 3 months, I'd been living with a constant low-level anxiety, a sense that something was wrong but not knowing what. Now I knew what it was, and more importantly, I knew what I was going to do about it. Tomorrow was Saturday. Tomorrow, Phase 3 would begin. Saturday morning brought the kind of autumn weather that makes you believe in second chances: crisp air, clear skies, and the promise that sometimes things really do get better. I was up early, making coffee and planning my day, when Erin shuffled into the kitchen looking like she'd been awake all night. Tom, she said, I've been thinking. That's dangerous. She ignored the jab. I want to fight the charges. I looked up from my newspaper. What charges? The fraud charges, the lawsuit, all of it. On what grounds? On the grounds that I was emotionally manipulated by a superior. Neil was my boss. He had power over me. I was a victim of workplace harassment. I set down my coffee cup very carefully. A victim. Yes, I've been reading about it online. There are precedents, cases where employees were coerced into relationships by their supervisors. Coerced. It's a hostile work environment, sexual harassment. I could probably sue the company for not protecting me. I stared at her. Erin, are you listening to yourself? I'm trying to save my career, my reputation, our future. By claiming you were sexually harassed into a 3-month affair? It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You made a choice. Every day for 3 months, you chose to lie to me and sleep with your boss. Nobody coerced you. You don't understand the dynamics of workplace power structures. I understand that you're trying to avoid responsibility for your actions. Again. Her face hardened. Fine. If you won't support me, I'll handle this myself. Good luck with that. She left the kitchen, and I heard her on the phone a few minutes later, presumably talking to her lawyer about this new victim strategy. I finished my coffee and called Pete. You're not going to believe this, I said when he answered. Try me. I told him about Erin's new plan to claim sexual harassment. Pete was quiet for a moment. That's actually pretty smart. Smart? From a legal standpoint. If she can convince a jury that she was coerced by a superior, she might be able to avoid the fraud charges. But she wasn't coerced. She was a willing participant. Can you prove that? I thought about it. The emails. They're pretty explicit about her enthusiasm. Then you better make sure those emails don't disappear. What do you mean? I mean, if Erin's going to claim she was harassed, she's going to try to destroy any evidence that suggests otherwise. And if those emails are on your home computer. I understood. She could delete them. Or claim they were fabricated, or taken out of context. Tom, you need to secure that evidence. How? Bring it to me. I'll make copies and store them somewhere safe. And Tom? Yeah? You might want to change the passwords on all your accounts. If she's desperate enough to claim sexual harassment, she's desperate enough to try to sabotage your evidence. I spent the next 2 hours backing up every piece of evidence I'd collected. Emails, photos, receipts, bank statements, everything. Pete was right. If Erin was going to play the victim card, she'd need to make sure no evidence contradicted her story. While I was working, I heard her on the phone in the living room. I know how it looks, she was saying. But you have to understand the pressure I was under. He was my boss. He controlled my career, my future. I felt like I had no choice. I shook my head and kept copying files. An hour later, she appeared in the doorway of my office. What are you doing? She asked. Organizing some files. What kind of files? Work stuff. She didn't believe me, but she couldn't exactly demand to see what I was doing without admitting she was planning something shady. Tom, I want you to know that I'm going to fight this. I'm not going to let them destroy my life over a relationship that I was pressured into. Pressured by who? By Neil, by the company culture, by the whole toxic masculine power structure that makes women feel like they have to sleep with their bosses to get ahead. Is that what happened? You slept with Neil to get ahead? That's not what I meant. Because 3 days ago, you told me it was a mistake, a moment of weakness. Now you're saying it was career advancement? It's complicated. It's really not. She left me alone after that, but I could hear her making more phone calls. By the time I finished securing the evidence, she'd apparently lined up meetings with her lawyer, a therapist who specialized in workplace trauma, and someone from a women's rights organization. I had to admit, it was a comprehensive strategy. If she could sell the harassment angle, she might actually get out of this with her reputation intact. She might even come out looking like a hero, the brave woman who stood up to workplace predators. There was just one problem with her plan. I had 3 months of evidence showing her enthusiastic participation in the affair. That afternoon, I drove to Pete's office to drop off the backup files. "This is good stuff," he said, scrolling through the emails. "Listen to this one. I can't wait to feel you inside me again. This morning was incredible, but I need more. I need all of you." That's from Erin to Neil? Yeah. Sent at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, from her work computer. Doesn't sound very coerced. Not even a little bit. And this one. "I told Tom I'm working late again. He's so clueless. It's almost sad. We have until midnight if you want to try that thing we talked about." I winced. I don't need to hear that one. Sorry. But Tom, this stuff completely contradicts any harassment claim. She wasn't a victim. She was an enthusiastic participant. So, what do I do with it? Nothing for now. Let her file her harassment complaint. Let her give interviews about being a victim of workplace abuse. Let her build her whole defense around being coerced. And then? Pete smiled. And then you release the evidence that shows she's lying. That seems kind of cruel. Cruel? Tom, she's trying to destroy an innocent man's reputation to save her own skin. Neil's a cheating bastard, but he didn't harass her. If she succeeds with this victim story, his life is over. He'll never work again. I thought about that. Neil had slept with my wife, but he hadn't forced her to do anything. If anything, the email suggested she'd been the aggressor in the relationship. "Okay," I said. We wait. That evening, Erin came home energized in a way I hadn't seen in weeks. "I had a great meeting with my lawyer," she announced. "And with Dr. Patterson. She's a specialist in workplace trauma. They both think I have a strong case." "A case for what?" "Sexual harassment, hostile work environment, emotional distress. Tom, I could get my job back. I could get compensation. And Neil's going to pay for what he did to me." "What did he do to you?" "He manipulated me. He used his position of power to coerce me into a sexual relationship." "By coerce, you mean?" "He made it clear that my career advancement depended on my willingness to be intimate with him." I nodded slowly. "So, when you told me it was a mistake, a moment of weakness, you were lying?" "I wasn't lying. I was confused. I didn't understand what had happened to me." "And now you do?" "Now I understand that I was a victim of systematic workplace abuse." "Systematic?" "Yes. Neil targeted me because I was vulnerable, new to the company, eager to succeed. He groomed me over a period of months, gradually escalating the inappropriate behavior until I felt like I had no choice but to comply." "Comply with what?" "With his sexual demands." I looked at this woman who had been my wife for 12 years and realized I was looking at a stranger. The Erin I'd married would never have made up a story like this. She would have owned her mistakes, accepted responsibility, and tried to make things right. This person was someone else entirely. "That's quite a story," I said. "It's not a story. It's what happened." "And you can prove it?" "I don't have to prove it. The pattern of behavior speaks for itself. The power imbalance, the gradual escalation, the fear of retaliation if I said no." "What about the emails?" For the first time, she looked uncertain. "What emails?" "The ones where you initiated contact, where you suggested meeting places, where you expressed your feelings for him. Those were written under duress. I felt like I had to seem enthusiastic or he'd fire me." "Under duress?" "Yes. For 3 months." "Yes." I nodded. "Well, good luck with that. Tom, I need you to support me on this. If we're going to save our marriage, I need to know you're on my side." "I'm on the side of the truth." "This is the truth." "No, Erin. This is a lie you're telling yourself to avoid taking responsibility for your choices." "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You made a decision to have an affair. It backfired. Now you're trying to rewrite history to make yourself look like a victim instead of a cheater. That's not what I'm doing. It's exactly what you're doing. And you know what the worst part is? What? If you succeed, you'll destroy an innocent man's life to save your own reputation. Neil's not innocent. He's guilty of adultery, not sexual harassment. There's a difference. You're defending him? I'm defending the truth. She stared at me for a long moment. I don't know who you are anymore. I'm the same person I've always been. I just stopped believing your lies. That night, I lay in bed thinking about the woman in the next room and the elaborate fiction she was constructing to avoid facing what she'd done. Part of me felt sorry for her. She was clearly desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. But a bigger part of me was angry. Not just about the affair anymore, but about this new betrayal. She was willing to destroy a man's reputation, to lie to lawyers and therapists and women's rights advocates, all to avoid taking responsibility for her actions. I thought about the emails Pete had read to me, about the enthusiasm and planning and deliberate deception they revealed. I thought about the 3 months of lies, the company money, the hotel rooms, the elaborate stories about working late. And I thought about Neil, who was probably at home right now, unaware that his former lover was about to accuse him of sexual harassment. I reached for my phone and did something I never thought I'd do. I called Neil. Hello? His voice was cautious. Neil, this is Tom Baker. Tom, listen to me very carefully. Erin is planning to accuse you of sexual harassment. There was a long silence. What? She's claiming you coerced her into the affair, that you used your position as her boss to pressure her into a sexual relationship. That's not what happened. I know. I have the emails to prove it. The emails. 3 months of correspondence between you and my wife. Very explicit, very enthusiastic, very much initiated by her. Tom, why are you telling me this? Because I don't like liars, and because what she's planning to do to you is worse than what she did to me. What do you want? I want you to get a good lawyer. And I want you to know that when the time comes, I'll testify on your behalf. You'd do that? After what I did? What you did was sleep with my wife. What she's doing is trying to destroy your life with false accusations. I know which one is worse. I hung up and tried to go to sleep, but I kept thinking about the look on Erin's face when she told me her harassment story. She'd believed every word of it. Somehow, in the space of a few days, she'd convinced herself that she really was a victim. The human capacity for self-deception was truly remarkable, but not as remarkable as my capacity for revenge. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of legal maneuvering and media attention. Erin had gone public with her harassment claims, giving interviews to local news stations and women's rights groups. She was articulate, sympathetic, and completely convincing. If I hadn't known the truth, I would have believed her myself. The story had everything the media loved. A powerful male executive preying on a vulnerable female employee, a company that failed to protect its workers, and a brave woman standing up to the system. Erin was being hailed as a hero. Neil, meanwhile, had been crucified in the court of public opinion. His photo was plastered across social media with captions like predator and abuser. He'd been fired from his job, thrown out by his wife, and was facing criminal charges for sexual harassment in addition to the fraud allegations. I watched it all unfold with a mixture of fascination and disgust. Erin had become a master manipulator, spinning her story with the skill of a seasoned politician. She'd even started a blog called Speaking Truth to Power, where she detailed her journey from victim to survivor. But I had the emails, and the receipts, and the video evidence that showed her enthusiastic participation in the affair. I was just waiting for the right moment to use them. That moment came on a Thursday morning when I got a call from Pete. Tom, you need to see this. What now? Erin's lawyer filed a motion to have you barred from testifying in the harassment case. On what grounds? They're claiming you're an unreliable witness because you're emotionally compromised by the divorce. They're also suggesting that you might have fabricated evidence to get revenge on your wife. They're what? It gets worse. Erin gave an interview last night where she said you've been stalking and harassing her since she came forward with her story. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. She said what? She's claiming you've been following her, threatening her, trying to intimidate her into dropping the harassment charges. That's complete bullshit. I know that, and you know that, but the public doesn't know that. Tom, she's trying to discredit you before you can discredit her. I hung up and immediately turned on the local news. Sure enough, there was Erin, sitting in what looked like a lawyer's office, talking to a sympathetic reporter about her abusive ex-husband. Tom has become increasingly unstable since I came forward, she was saying. He can't accept that I was a victim of workplace harassment, so he's created this elaborate fantasy where I was somehow responsible for what happened to me. He's been following me, calling me at all hours, threatening to release fabricated evidence if I don't drop the charges against Neil. The reporter nodded sympathetically. That must be terrifying for you. It is. I'm already dealing with the trauma of what Neil did to me, and now I have to worry about my own husband trying to silence me. Have you considered getting a restraining order? My lawyer is looking into it. I turned off the TV and sat in my empty house, marveling at the depth of Erin's deception. She wasn't just lying about the harassment anymore. She was lying about me, painting me as an unstable, vindictive ex-husband who couldn't handle the truth about his wife's victimization. It was brilliant, actually. If she could convince people that I was unreliable, that I was motivated by revenge rather than truth, then any evidence I presented would be dismissed as fabricated. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd forgotten that I was a project manager, and project managers always have backup plans. I called Pete. It's time. You sure? She just accused me of stalking and harassment on live television. Yeah, I'm sure. What do you want to do? Everything. Release it all. That afternoon, Pete and I held what we called a press conference in his office. We invited 3 local reporters, a blogger who specialized in legal affairs, and a representative from the men's rights organization that had been supporting Neil. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, I want to address the allegations that have been made against me, and more importantly, I want to share some evidence that I believe is relevant to the sexual harassment case involving my wife and her former supervisor. I handed out folders containing copies of the emails, receipts, and a detailed timeline of the affair. What you're looking at, I continued, is 3 months of correspondence between Erin Baker and Neil Haywood. These emails were sent from my wife's personal account to Mr. Haywood's personal account, using our home computer. The reporters began flipping through the pages, their eyes widening as they read. As you can see, I said, these messages paint a very different picture than the one my wife has been presenting publicly. Far from being coerced or harassed, the emails show that she was an enthusiastic and often aggressive participant in the affair. I directed their attention to specific emails, the ones where Erin had initiated contact, suggested meeting places, and expressed her feelings for Neil in explicit detail. This email, dated February 10th, I said, shows my wife asking Mr. Haywood to meet her at a hotel during her lunch break. This one, from February 18th, shows her planning a romantic getaway using company funds. And this one, from March 3rd, shows her expressing frustration that Neil wasn't being aggressive enough in pursuing the relationship. The room was completely silent, except for the sound of pages turning. I want to be clear, I continued, that I'm not defending Mr. Haywood's actions. He committed adultery, and he misused company resources. But he did not sexually harass my wife. If anything, these emails suggest that she was the pursuer in the relationship. One of the reporters raised her hand. Mr. Baker, your wife claims that these emails were written under duress, that she felt compelled to appear enthusiastic to avoid retaliation. That's possible, I said. But I'd like you to consider the timeline. The first email in this chain was sent by my wife to Mr. Haywood, not the other way around. She initiated contact. She suggested their first meeting. She pursued him. I showed them the very first email, dated December 15th. Neil, I can't stop thinking about what you said at the Christmas party. You're right that we have a connection. I know it's complicated because you're my boss, but I think we should explore this. Are you free for drinks tomorrow night? This doesn't sound like a woman being coerced, I said. This sounds like a woman making a choice. Another reporter spoke up. What about your wife's claims that you've been stalking and harassing her? I smiled. I'm glad you asked. I handed out another set of documents. These are my phone records for the past month, showing no calls to my wife's number. These are GPS records from my truck, showing that I haven't been anywhere near her apartment or workplace. And this is a statement from my employer, confirming that I've been at work every day during the times my wife claims I was following her. The reporters were frantically taking notes. The truth is, I said, I haven't spoken to my wife in over a week. I've been letting the legal system handle our divorce, and I've been staying out of her harassment case entirely. Until now. Why now? Asked the blogger. Because she's trying to destroy an innocent man's reputation to save her own. Because she's lying to the police, to the media, and to the women's rights organizations that are supporting her. And because she's trying to discredit me to prevent the truth from coming out. I stood up. I want to be very clear about something. My wife is not a victim of sexual harassment. She's a woman who made bad choices and is now trying to avoid the consequences, and I have the evidence to prove it. The press conference lasted another hour, with reporters asking detailed questions about the timeline, the evidence, and my motivations. By the time it was over, I was emotionally drained but satisfied. The story broke that evening on all 3 local news stations. The headlines were brutal. Emails contradict harassment claims. Husband releases evidence in harassment case. Was sexual harassment claim fabricated? By morning, the story had gone viral. The emails were being discussed on national news programs, legal blogs, and social media. The women's rights organization that had been supporting Erin quietly withdrew their endorsement. Her lawyer issued a statement saying they were reviewing new evidence, and Neil's lawyer called to thank me. Tom, he said, I don't know how to repay you for this. You don't have to repay me, I said. Just make sure the truth comes out. It will. The prosecutor is already talking about dropping the harassment charges, and the civil case is dead in the water. Good. Tom, can I ask you something? Sure. Why did you do this? I mean, I slept with your wife. You could have just let me burn. I thought about that. Because what you did was personal. What she's doing is evil. That afternoon, Erin called me for the first time in 2 weeks. Tom. Her voice was barely a whisper. Erin. You destroyed me. No, you destroyed yourself. I just made sure people knew the truth. The truth? The truth is that I made a mistake, and now my entire life is ruined because of it. The truth is that you made a choice, multiple choices, and when those choices had consequences, you tried to blame everyone but yourself. I lost everything, Tom. My job, my friends, my reputation, everything. You lost those things when you decided to have an affair. I just made sure you couldn't take an innocent man down with you. Innocent? He slept with a married woman. Yes, he did, and he's paying the price for that. But he didn't harass you, and you know it. There was a long silence. What happens now? She asked finally. Now you face the consequences of your actions. The real consequences, not the fake victim story you made up. And us? There is no us. There hasn't been an us since you decided to sleep with your boss. Tom, Goodbye, Erin. I hung up and blocked her number. 2 weeks later, the harassment charges against Neil were officially dropped. The fraud charges remained, but his lawyer was confident they could negotiate a settlement that wouldn't involve jail time. Erin's blog disappeared. Her social media accounts went dark. She moved out of town, presumably to start over somewhere where people didn't know her story. I never saw her again. 6 months later, our divorce was finalized. I kept the house, the truck, and most of our savings. Erin got half of what was left after paying her legal bills, which wasn't much. I was sitting on my deck one evening, drinking a beer and watching the sunset, when Pete stopped by. "How you doing?" he asked. "Good. Really good, actually." "Any regrets?" I thought about that. Did I regret destroying my wife's reputation? Did I regret exposing her lies? Did I regret the nuclear option I'd chosen instead of just walking away quietly? "No," I said finally. "She made her choices. I made mine." "Think you'll ever see her again?" "I hope not." Pete sat down in the chair that used to be Erin's. "You know, when this all started, I wasn't sure you were doing the right thing. And now? Now I think you did exactly what needed to be done. She tried to destroy an innocent man to save herself. Someone had to stop her. Someone did." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun disappear behind the trees. Somewhere across town, Neil was probably having dinner with his kids, his reputation damaged but not destroyed. Somewhere else, Erin was probably starting over, hopefully having learned something about the consequences of lying. And I was here, in the house I'd built with my own hands, finally at peace. The truth had won. Justice had been served. And for the first time in months, I slept through the night without dreaming about traffic excuses and company credit cards. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Mel. "Saw the news about the charges being dropped. How are you holding up?" I typed back, "Never better. The truth has a way of setting you free." And for the first time in a very long time, I meant every word.